Welcome to ¿Qué pasa? HSIs, a podcast dedicated to everything Hispanic serving institutions. I'm your host, Dr. Gina Ann Garcia, bringing you the news on what's happening in HSIs. Join us as we explore the history and evolution of HSIs, culturally relevant and liberatory practices, current and emerging research with HSIs, and the policies that shape servingness.
Saludos HSI familia, and welcome back to ¿Qué pasa? HSIs. On today's episode, we are learning with Dr. Cyndia Morales Muñiz, who serves as Senior Director for Hispanic Serving Institution Initiatives at the University of Central Florida. Dr. Muñiz led efforts that resulted in UCF becoming the third four-year public university in the state university system of Florida to be federally recognized as an HSI by the Department of Ed. And that was in January 2019. She now works across the university to develop a centralized vision for maximizing this designation in a way that meaningfully serves students, faculty, staff, alumni, and community members from diverse backgrounds. In October 2021, her leadership resulted in UCF achieving the Seal of Excelencia certification. Currently, Dr. Muñiz also serves as project director for UCF's first awarded Title V HSI grant. She's recently been honored with the 2023 Don Quixote Award for Professional of the Year by the Hispanic Chamber and Prospera, as well as the 2023 One World Scouting Diversity and Inclusion Award by the Boy Scouts of America Central Florida Council, and the 2024 Women Who Mean Business Award by the Orlando Business Journal. Dr. Muñiz is a first-generation college graduate, having earned a bachelor's degree in sociology from Binghamton University, a master's degree in sociology from St. John's University, and a doctoral degree in educational leadership, higher education from the University of Central Florida. So excited to have Dr. Muñiz with us here today. Dr. Morales Muñiz, bienvenido a ¿Qué pasa? HSIs, where we talk about all things HSIs. But first, we're going to talk about what brings you into HSI work. So let's get started with your servingness journey.
Yes, Doctora Gracia, thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you. As I think about my servingness journey, I mean, I'm going to go way back, right? So first thing is first, I proudly identify as a Brooklyn Boricua. And for those who may not be aware what that is, Brooklyn, being born and raised in New York City, and Boricua being the indigenous name for Puerto Rico, what we know today as Puerto Rico, the Borican people, right? Borinquen is what we call nuestra isla. And so for me, as a proud Taína, right? I identify as a proud Taína. So that's kind of, that's me, right? Brooklyn Boricua. And also, I always start off by saying que yo soy la hija de Luisa y Ernesto, right? My parents are everything to me, and the core, right, of everything that I do. Mommy was, born in Cagua, Puerto Rico. She worked in a factory as a seamstress. She was only able to complete the 4th grade. And Papi was a landscaper, and he was only able to complete the 7th grade. And so, they made their way to New York City back in the 50s, what a lot of people refer to as the mass migration, right? A lot of Puerto Ricans heading to New York City, the Northeast. My parents were a part of that. And, got paid $1.25, $1.50 an hour. And so very, very humble beginnings. I always say that I pride myself that my parents will teach you things that you will never find in a book. And so for me, like, it's just, I'm really proud to be their daughter. So I start there. Now, a little bit about my journey. I'm a Leo. Shout out to the Leos. It's August, right? And so it's Leo season, a pride, right? Prideful people, but proud people. I was a child. I remember just wanting to be the best student that I could be. I wanted all the certificates. I was always ready with my hands crossed, ready to do what the teacher asked. But school it came easy to me as a child. Like I did well. And I'll fast forward to high school, because this is really where I start to lean into my servingness journey. I get to high school. It's probably junior year. And all my friends start talking about Binghamton University, right? We're talking about the pre-SATs. We're talking about where we're going to college. And everyone talks about Binghamton University. So I go, okay, well, bet that's where I'm going. It sounds great. Sounds fantastic. That's where I'm going. And for those who don't know, Binghamton University is part of the State University System of New York. Very highly ranked, very, very strong institution. And I'm very fortunate to be an alum of that institution. So I go to my guidance counselor and I say, I want to apply to Binghamton University. And she goes, Cyndia, I think Binghamton is a reach school for you. I think you should try Farmingdale Community College and then you can get a job. So, I was in tears. I didn't quite understand. I mean, essentially it was because my SAT score was not hot, as they say, right? It was not a strong score, but I did everything else right. I had strong grades. I did the volunteer work. I had all the awards, but I did not have a strong competitive SAT score. As I'm leaving her office, there is a guidance counselor from a visiting center or from a local center. It's called the Harlem Center for Education. And so they sent out guidance counselors to local under-resourced high schools to help the guidance counselors in the high schools. And he saw me crying, Mario Morales, que descanse en paz, rest in peace. And he said, have you ever heard of the Educational Opportunity Program? So EOP, as it's often referred to, is a summer bridge program. And so for me, with parents from the that completed fourth and seventh grade respectively, I'm a first generation college student, first generation college graduate, first generation professional, et cetera, right? It keeps going. It doesn't stop at the college level. He told me about the EOP program. I applied. It's a summer bridge program where you're accepted on a conditional basis to complete some coursework over the summer, to complete some other activities that are aligned, requirements for the program. Successfully completed the program. Then my admission became official for Binghamton. And then fast forward, I graduated in 3 years. I did everything that I could and my undergraduate experience. I was a resident assistant. I studied abroad. I pledged the sorority. I was a McNair Scholar. I did all the things. Went on to get my master's degree at St. John's University, my doctoral degree at the University of Central Florida, where I'm currently at now. And so that's kind of in a nutshell, right? What brought me to where I'm at now.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting journey that like a counselor would tell you that you should not apply where you should be going, because people say that all the time, right? Like that's such a sad story that we are told, oh no, you can't get into that school, right? Which is not, I would say, is the opposite of servingness.
Yeah.
Not servingness at all, right? Those folks that tell us that, but it's common. It's quite common. So thank you for taking us on that journey and going all the way back and shouting out your parents and stuff and knowing that all their sacrifices for you to get to where you are. It's beautiful. So let's talk about University of Central Florida as an HSI. UCF has received its designation in 2019, but we know the journey usually starts well before 2019. So talk to us about the process from what you know. I know obviously, maybe you weren't involved in all of that, but that of the process of getting y'all there and like, who decided we're going to do this and actually hire, someone like yourself to like really drive some of this work?
Sure. So as I reflect on HSI work at UCF, I'm actually, again, I'm gonna take a step back to 2011 when I was a doctoral student at UCF, and I was in my higher education and policy course, public policy course. And we were asked to, select the topic for our public policy papers. And I stumbled across Title V and HSIs. And so that was, for me, my first exposure back to 2011, where I learned that there was such a thing as Hispanic serving institutions, that there were colleges, universities that actually had this label that there was something out there that represented me, that resonated with me. And so for that was 2011. In 2012, I started working full-time at UCF in student affairs. So that's kind of my upbringing there. My initial work in higher ed was in student affairs and working with multicultural students and first-generation students. And I quickly recognized, coming from New York, very different environment, I quickly recognized that I just wasn't seeing Latino students in the various programs that we were hosting. And so that led to a number of activities kind of on my part, and then kind of bringing on my friends, my allies, and everyone to put certain things in place. So those were there was great work that was happening in pockets around the university, great work that was happening in pockets, and I wanted to contribute to that. So I got a grant, started some programs, and started doing things on my own. In 2015, now we were starting to hear more conversations across the university about UCF becoming, right, like an emerging HSI, right? So there were questions about, do you see the numbers? Do you see that our Latino student population continues to grow, year to year? I mean, just significant growth year to year. Do you know that we're close to being an HSI? And what does that mean? What are the opportunities that are aligned with that? And so in 2015, there was an HSI exploratory committee that was put together. And my understanding, having been a part of those initial conversations, was that the president at the time called upon the chief diversity officer at the time to put a committee together and to explore, right? To explore, what does this mean? So at the time, I was an assistant director in student affairs, and really it was information gathering, kind of what is this all about? What does this mean? What's the information that's needed? And what are the opportunities that we can pursue? At the same time, now my colleagues and I are having another conversation. So we're becoming an HSI, right? From an official standpoint, right? From the number standpoint, but we are the experts, right? We are the experts of our identities and our lived experiences. And we also bring a level of expertise in a number of different disciplines. And so how do we help and support, right, our leadership, our administration, to help them go about this work in the right way? And so with that, myself and two other colleagues launched the Latino Faculty and Staff Association to advocate for the work, right? To say, hey, we represent a number of different areas of the university. We have examples. We're ready to do this with you, and please lean on our expertise, because we know what we're talking about, but let's do this together, right? So that was also, I think, part of that. A critical piece of our servingness journey was really engaging our Latino faculty and staff to be significant players in that process of what it meant for us as an institution to be a Hispanic serving institution. So that's 2015. More programs, small grants, pockets of great work happening. And then in 2018, then we decide that we're going to celebrate National HSIs Week, which is an activity that is coordinated by HACU, the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. And so we were not officially, quote unquote, designated yet. We had not received that a stamp of approval, that official stamp of approval from the Department of Education. But we knew, right? We've known for a long time who our students are. Like, we know who our students are. So we said, we're going to celebrate National HSIs Week. And that was 2018. And then in 2019, then we officially got the notice that we were now an eligible institution to pursue Title V funding. And we took it from there.
Oh, I love this. What I call the process. I'm calling the process. So I'm like in my head right now about what are the processes, and you just like answer that question, right? That like it's not an overnight thing, right? Like you don't just like, oh, here's the numbers, right? Like, and nothing happened and now stuff happens. Like a lot of stuff does happen prior, right? And that grassroots leadership, right? Like you said, you and your colegas like getting together and like sort of driving and pushing, right, from the bottom up to say like we should be doing this, because like it doesn't just happen overnight that we like become an HSI. There's a process to it. And so with that leads me to my next question. So I have been, like I said, this is something I'm writing about and thinking about right now, including my book. The next book is going to be about these processes. And I've been drawing heavily on an article that you wrote with Dr. Marla Frankel, the Centering Servingness Framework Informed Assessment of Hispanic Serving Institutions. I love that article. Go into it probably like at least once or twice a week, because it really is, it draws out, right? Like y'all talk about those processes in the article. Now, one of the things you talk about is the Seal of Excelencia being an important part of UCF's process of enacting servingness. So talk to us about that and about the time and the effort needed to apply for the seal, because a lot of people ask. I mean, they'll ask me, like, what do you think it's worth it? And I'm like, I've never done it. I can't give you that recommendation, right? So talk to us about that time and that effort that goes into it, and its value for the campus in their servingness journey.
Absolutely. Thank you. No, I appreciate the question. And I mean, and first of all, of course, just a shout out, much love to Dr. Marla Franco at the University of Arizona, who's been a wonderful colleague. And I really enjoyed working on that article with her. I'm just grateful for her example and her support. So sending her much love. And this opportunity really to draw from two frameworks that can really put our work into action, and for us to be able to articulate the work that we were doing, the Seal of Excelencia being one framework, and of course your framework, right, with the multidimensional conceptual framework for understanding servingness at HSIs. And so both of those frameworks were critical to how we go about our HSI work. And as that relates to the Seal of Excelencia, that was a very rigorous and rewarding process, right? For us, to look at the data at that level, right? So they ask us for 5 years of data in different sections of whether it's enrollment, retention, graduation rates, right? They look at leadership, and so leadership, and then also our practices, so data, practice, and leadership. But to look at data for those amount of years, and then to also look at programmatic data, right? As far as, okay, well, we know what our persistence rates look like over 5 years, but now let's look at this program, and now let's pull the data for this program and see how it contributes to those overall percentages. Then it was really rigorous, and it was, I appreciated, and the team, right? The team, because there was a team of us working together across divisions, across academic colleges, working on the application. We appreciated the opportunity to step back and to really celebrate, right, some of the things that we were doing really, really well. So that's important, right? With everything that we do, we're always kind of, deep in the work, but we have to kind of take a moment to see, right, to admire and celebrate the progress that we've made. So we had those moments where we were really proud of ourselves with a lot of different areas of work. And then there were some other areas of work where we thought we were doing a lot better than we were. And so that was a really valuable, several valuable lessons where we're like, wow, we really thought that these numbers would be higher, or we really thought that this program did this. And so it gave us the opportunity, right, to learn where were those areas where we can improve or we could strengthen. And so that was really valuable, because after that process, then we went ahead and implemented a few things. We were tweaking some other things, and then we started asking other questions, right? And that led to just a broader conversation across the university about how do we prepare for next time, because it is a 3-year certification. As they say, it's not one and done. So how do we prepare for next time? How do we continue to improve? So that process, just really, like I said, rigorous, rewarding. And I guess the most important piece to say is that, one, we, as an HSI, we understand that Latino students, right, they represent critical mass. So we cannot meet, right, our institutional goals if our Latino students are not successful. At the same time, that doesn't mean that that's where we stop. That may be where we start. Right? That may be where we start, because again, they represent critical mass. And so let's look at this big chunk of students here and what we learn in this process, how we can strengthen their experience. And now what do we learn, and how do we apply that to other student populations, right? So the value of it is that it is an exercise that I think, many institutions can implement just across the board, right? So you can come up with your plan of, okay, we're going to look at our Latino students. What does it mean for Black students? What does it mean, for our first generation students, whatever population it may be, so that's what I'd say about that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So very data-driven process, right?
Very.
Like you just said data many times.
Very,
right? Like
very
data intensive process, right? And I
Yes.
think from what I've heard is like, that's one of the important pieces if you're going to do the seal is like, you need to have the institutional capacity to provide those kind of data, right? Like that, and not all
Yes.
campuses do, right? Like that's
Yes.
important that the campus has the access to the data, can disaggregate and look at it.
Yes.
But something else you said, I think is important towards the end, because there's always this question of like, if we do HSI, now we're not going to serve other students, right? And you made it very clear, right? That like,
Yes.
actually it opens the door for us to explore other students, right? And look at other
Right.
inequities, right? Like what is going on with Black students? What's going on with
Yes.
white students? What's going on with
Mhm.
AAPI students, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's like so hard for people to get past. They think HSI
Yeah.
is like, oh my gosh, now we don't care about nobody else, just
Yeah.
Hispanic students, right? And it's just
Yeah.
not, that's just not true. And we know
Yeah.
that.
No,
So
no, it's not. And I have to say that I'm proud of our journey in that respect, because our messaging from the beginning has always been a message of both and, right? Like our message has always been, okay, so what does this mean for Latino students, and what else can we do, right? So for us, and I think that now being 5 years in, right, that even more, right, of our faculty or of our community, like all stakeholders, internal and external, I think they get that. I think they get that now, right? It's an ongoing education of what HSIs are and what they're not, right? But I often engage in conversations with colleagues or parents or anyone who ask about HSI, and I go, well, there are opportunities that are designed to support Latino student success, and then there are other opportunities that are designed to support all HSIs that are enrolled at an HSI, right? So all students that are enrolled at an HSI. So,
yes.
right? Is that what I said? So,
Yes.
so
I knew
yes.
what you meant. I knew what you meant.
You know what? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, all students that are enrolled at an HSI.
Yes, but that's the
So, for
important
sure.
part is like, we don't forget like other students just because we're an HSI, but
No.
it gives us the
Mhm.
opportunity. What you've laid out for us is like, you actually have the opportunity to do really good practices, like
Mhm, mhm.
disaggregate your data, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a good practice for all your
Mhm.
students. That's a good equity practice, right? In general. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, let's talk about some of the HSI specific work, because we know that Title V grants are, you know, part of the process. Not everybody gets Title V grants, but if you can get them, obviously it's a lever for change, right? It's something that can lead to some change. You can pilot things, try new things, right? Stuff like that. So your website lists that you have both Part A and Part B, for which you serve as a project director. Talk to us about those grants. What are their purposes and the processes y'all are taking? You know, you took to secure them, and now that you have them, what's going on with those grants?
Yes, yeah. This is a really nice segue. I would say that like our experience a little bit with the Seal of Excelencia also strengthened our ability to tell that story. And so our storytelling as it relates to how we support Latino students while serving all, right? That was a great exercise for us as we then went into application mode, right? For Title V. So Title V, we do have Title V Part A, part of, right, the Developing Hispanic Serving Institutions program. And so our focus for that project is called Potencial. Potencial, Spanish word for potential, also strongly aligned with our mission at UCF to unleash potential. So we were super proud and excited about that. So for us as an HSI, Potencial, promoting opportunities that enhance navigation, completion, inclusion, and learning. And so that had an overall kind of focus or target of strengthening our 4-year and 2-year graduation rates respectively, with a focus on strengthening sense of belonging, right? What does that mean for our Latino students and all of our students? We want all of our students to feel included, seen on campus. What does that mean, right? What are the elements that we can include to strengthen that? Also a strong tie to engagement and high impact practices. So we wanted to see more low income students or Pell eligible students and Latino students in high impact practices like undergraduate research and internships. And so when we disaggregated the data, we saw that our Hispanic transfer students, right, the biggest gaps were there with our Hispanic transfer students. And as we know with Title V, you know, it's low income students of all racial ethnic backgrounds. And so really thinking broadly about how do we get, you know, more students to take advantage of those high impact practices that we know work, right? And that will lead to stronger graduation rates, which will then hopefully lower, right, cost of attendance for our students. So everything is all connected there. the programs that we have aligned with that grant. So something like the Latinx Professional Speaker Series. So we have Latine alumni who come, right? These are professionals. They come, they share their life story. These events are open to all of our students, of course. It's just another way of providing examples, right, of Latino leaders in the community doing great things and giving advice, you know? So here's my journey. This is what I learned. This is how I was coping with this. So our students really enjoy that. We have a Conexiones program that has a focus on transfer students. So the pre-transfer, the transition itself, and then once they're enrolled at UCF, then kind of helping them get connected, right, quickly, because we know that our transfer students often, they feel as if they're missing out on things because they just have a shorter time, you know, with the institution. So Conexiones is kind of with them from pre-transfer all the way through, and it has that Latino lens, right? So we just add that Latino lens. So all of our students they really enjoy Conexiones, and then high impact practice scholars program. You know, really getting more students into their HIP experiences, or just exposing them, right? Exploring what this is, and then getting an experience there. And then we also have, I guess I'll wrap up by saying our faculty development initiatives, because we know that faculty are core, right, to institutionalization. You know, if you train 20, 30 faculty per year and you calculate how many students, right, they reach, you know, any given year. So if you have stronger faculty, right, that are equipped and understand how to serve our students, our wonderfully diverse students, then that's a great thing for everybody, right? So we have a faculty learning community that we're able to implement through this Title V grant, and that's in the spring. And then we also have an HSI track that we launched. We've just completed year 2 HSI track during our Summer Faculty Development Institute. All of this work is done in collaboration with our Division of Student Success and Wellbeing, also with our Division of Faculty Excellence. So that's one. That's one. Title V Part B with our POHA grant, that's called Enfermería. So Enfermería, educating nurses for engagement, research, mentoring excellence, and reinforcing interpretation access. The focus there is to increase Hispanic representation in nursing graduate programs at UCF, and then to provide all nursing graduate students of all racial ethnic backgrounds with the tools and the knowledge needed to provide culturally congruent care to Hispanic Latino communities. So through the POHA grant, Title V Part B, we were able to launch a Hispanic Serving Healthcare Professionals Graduate Certificate Program. And it's a 9-credit mouthful. It's a 9-credit certificate program at the graduate level. We just graduated our first cohort, our inaugural cohort for the certificate program last week. We're super excited for them. And that grant is in partnership with 3 academic colleges: our College of Nursing, College of Health, Health Professions and Sciences, and our College of Graduate Studies. So in a nutshell, a little bit about Title V.
Yes. Oh, I love that second one, that Part B. I think y'all were so creative in the way you brought areas like the health sciences aren't usually brought into these kind of grants, right? Like to bring the health sciences in, like that's powerful. Particularly nursing. I talk about nursing all the time. I'm like, if we're not training culturally relevant nurses, they're going out and serving the Latino community, and they aren't able to do it through that, as you said, Latino lens, right? They don't have the Latine lens, and or don't have the medical Spanish, let's say, right? To even like the terminology, right? Like what an important area to be thinking like about not only the student, but who they're going to be serving, right? So I love that. Because I talk about nursing all the time. I'm like, what's your nursing program doing? Where are they at? So yeah, that's awesome that you were like, able to bring those in such an important way. I have a question about the process. So you said that with your Title V Part A that you had seen the disaggregated data. So did the Seal of Excelencia process, y'all did that prior to applying for the grants, or were they like simultaneously? Because people ask a lot of times, like, what order should you go in, right? Like, what should we do first?
Well, no, that's a great question. For us, no, we were We were certified in 2021. And so our grants, both of our Title V grants were awarded in 2022. So I want to say that we submitted our certification application a little bit before, but you're right. I think they were very close. They were very close in that time frame. Yeah.
And sort of informing each other. The process was
Informing
one
each other.
the
Yeah.
other. Yeah. Yeah.
It was a little bit about, that. So with Seal of Excelencia, was that, we got a little bit from that, again, like I mentioned, the storytelling, but then also what were some potential programs that we learned about that we could scale, right? So because for Title V, you want to scale, you want to create something new, or you want to scale. And so some of that I think made its way into or informed our applications. But overall, it was really driven through the comprehensive development plan, right? That CDP that does that SWOT analysis for what are our strengths, our weaknesses, etc. So then that's kind of how we landed on, and of course, looking at our strategic plan, right? So for us, it was like we had just launched our brand new strategic plan in 2022. And so it was all aligned with our overall goals of the institution for our Title V grants. So it all kind of was, happening at the same time, but it was a back and forth, like dissertation writing, right? You go back and forth, and one thing informs the other, and then so
yes.
it was all helpful.
It's okay. That's helpful because I think you're right. I think the synergy has to happen. It has to be all right. That a strategic plan and a seal and the Title V A and B, all of that does come together, right? Like, and that's important part. But campus is just getting started, my own and included. We're not just getting started, but we're launching some new things, right, at UC Berkeley, because we're trying to get to HSI, right? We're not there yet. We're 5% away. It's like we're trying to figure out what do we do first, right? What do we do in the first year? What do we do in the second year? And you have to do that, right? People want to just like jump in and do it all and have it all accomplished, right? And it just doesn't happen that fast. So I appreciate this conversation of sort of like, what goes on and what order maybe, and maybe it's not order, maybe it's simultaneous.
Yeah.
So we see a growing number of HSI directors across the country. So let's talk about that. Tell us about your role as Senior Director for Hispanic Serving Institutions and how your role differs from, let's say, a PI of one of those Title V A or Bs, or even the project director, right, of one of those grants, because your role is distinct from that. So talk to us about that and the significance of having an HSI director.
Yes. So I became the inaugural HSI director at UCF in 2019. And I think I want to say that I was one of the first HSI directors in the country, kind of at the time. Like there was this first iteration, right, of HSI directors that were coming to light, or even higher level, right? I think Dr. Franco at the time was an AVP for HSI initiatives. And so there was this initial set of HSI directors, back in 2018, 2019, I was part of that group. Now today, as Senior Director for HSI initiatives, I do believe that I continue to be the only HSI director in the state of Florida. But it's great to see that there are more HSI directors, right, emerging, right, across the country, because it is a lot of work, right, that deserves full-time attention, and not only from one person, but a team, perhaps, right, with the appropriate resources. And so my role in my context is very multifaceted. I am a state-funded role, and so my focus really is helping all of our university stakeholders understand, what it means for us to be an HSI, provide that centralized vision of our approach to being an HSI. What does it mean for folks in their respective spaces, right, where they sit? What does it mean for our students, for our faculty, for our external community members, for parents, right, for anyone, right, that interfaces with UCF? What is it for us to be an HSI? And I help folks craft, right, that language that makes sense for their respective areas, but then also understand our core values as it relates to how we go about this work. so that's that one part, is that ongoing education of, did you know we're an HSI? Do you know what that means? Do you understand the resources that are available to help you implement certain programs or practices that you may want to incorporate in your area? Do you know that these are the funding opportunities that you can pursue because we're an HSI? Because when you are designated an eligible institution for Title V funding, right, through HSI programs, that opens doors for you to pursue other HSI funding opportunities or MSI, minority serving institution opportunities, that did not exist before, not only through the Department of Education, but through several federal agencies, through several foundations. We are now seeing foundations that are now paying closer attention to HSIs or MSIs. And so I help folks understand the landscape in that regard. I also work very closely with our Office of Research, supporting our faculty and our administration in pursuing those grant opportunities. And so I do have boilerplate language that I provide for our faculty as they're telling the HSI story in their respective grant proposals, right? Our successes that we've had, and our commitment, like our serious commitment, right, to the work, right? I work very collaboratively with anyone who may be pursuing those types of funding. Same goes for our UCF Foundation and those foundation grants. We work very closely as well, and to make those connections and to tell those stories that are appropriate for that funding. So that, I think, is a key. It's a key part of this work, because we know, right, that the important piece is to go about this work in the right way. The spirit of the work is what I often say. Perhaps not every institution takes that approach, I guess, is what I'm getting at, right? And so in my conversations, I'm just very fortunate that my colleagues understand that there is a responsibility that comes with this work, and that everyone is on board, that if we're not comfortable talking about Latino student success, then we should not be comfortable talking about HSI funding. I've been known to say that, right? Share that with colleagues and in meetings. And everyone understands, right, the spirit of the work and how we drive that work forward in the interest of all involved. So that's kind of my role there. How does it differ from a project director or PI of a grant? So in my case, I have 3 jobs, in a way, I like to say, maybe more. So I have my overarching goal of senior director for HSI initiatives. But then I also serve as the project director for Potencial and Enfermería, which I shared a little bit before about those grants, which are massive grants, right? They're about $3 million each, 5-year grants, and just a lot of work and a lot of partnership and a lot of new things as well. And so, whereas as a project director for a grant, you're responsible for leading that work for that time frame and implementing that project for that time frame. It might sit in a specific area of your institution, but in my case, there is a lot of partnership that goes on, because we're very big on partnership. So we want to make sure that any grant that we have is not just sitting in one division, that it's really kind of across, it touches multiple bases. But eventually those grants will complete, right? They'll run out, and then you're left with, did you institutionalize any aspects of that, right? Because hopefully that's the purpose of the grant, is to really bring about that change and implement something new, but then kind of keep portions of that once the grant is over. So things should not just stop after the grant. It's meant to implement and to be sustainable. But that's kind of the difference. My role is, an official role that is university-wide, and then these grants will eventually run out, and then we'll continue to pursue other grants, hopefully, and continue to secure them, and then keep those projects going whenever the time comes down the line.
Okay, thank you for that. I think it's so important for us to keep saying this over and over again, that these are differences. And for a campus to commit to an HSI director is big. And you're right, and like I said, there's a growing number, right? There was a small number, and we're starting to see more and more pop up. But I sense just a spirit of collaboration, and like you said, partnership, that like you're not in charge of everything. You're just you're helping to drive it, right?
Yes.
But getting a lot of people on board with you, right, as you go.
Yes,
That
yes.
seems like a
HSI
part
work is
of-
everybody's work. Yes.
Yes.
HSI work is everybody's work. I happen to be our residential expert, if you will, right? Just because I'm plugged in at the national level, right? Leveraging the resources that you provide to us. So I'm plugged in with folks that are doing this work, and I bring the information back, and then everyone does their part.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I sense it. I feel it, right? In all your
Yeah.
answers, it's like this is us, right?
Yes.
The pronoun is we, right?
Yes.
We are
Yes.
doing this, right? And I think that's such an important piece of the HSI work, is like campuses that can get behind it in that sort of way, this collaboration. And it sounds like you also did a good job of convincing folks like this is an opportunity, right? This opportunity for you, but also if you're going to pursue this opportunity, you need to be able to talk about Latine students, right? Like it's got to be both, right? You can't just have opportunities to fund, projects you want to fund, but like they've got to be with the Latine community in mind, right? At the center. So
Indeed.
I love it. So one
you.
of the things you mentioned also was private foundations. I agree. Private foundations are starting to listen and pay attention to HSI, right? The ones that are paying attention, right? And it looks like y'all have tapped into some private foundations. And I think that's an important thing, that yes, the federal government is an important source of funding. There's a particular line of funding, stream of funding coming through Title V, as we know, and NSF and other agencies. But I think the really savvy HSIs like y'all are also noticing there's other ways to also fund some of these initiatives. So talk to us about some of the partnerships you've built with places like Google or Bank of America, Sloan Foundation, to advance some of the HSI efforts.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So also just real quick, I do want to also mention that we have been able to secure 3 federal grants through the National Science Foundation, our Improving Undergraduate STEM Education HSI program. I just really want to shout out our faculty, right? Especially our STEM faculty, because we know, right, that there is need there, not only for our Latina students, for all of our students to get through, to be successful in STEM majors. So we've been able to secure 3 of those grants in collaboration as well. And so I want to, highlight my colleagues there, because it's so important. So I want to thank them for that. When it comes to private foundations and corporate grants, which our corporate grants are housed in our foundation, right, in our UCF foundation, we were able to secure through the Sloan Foundation, Andrew Sloan. And so that has a focus on how we build a pipeline from our independent colleges in our Central Florida region into STEM doctoral programs. And so that is something that is kind of in the works. We're kind of like a year and a half in with launching that program, but really building that pipeline, right? Again, everything is partnerships and how we strengthen that pipeline eventually, so that we can see more faculty, right? As well, and leadership, right, at our institutions that look like the students that we serve. So that's been a great partnership with Sloan in collaboration with our College of Graduate Studies there. When it comes to like Google and Bank of America, actually, we've been a longtime member of HACU, and we were in conversations. They have a partnership with Google, and so they were able to put a number of HSIs in touch with Google to secure funding for their Grow with Google HSI Career Readiness Program. And so that was something that we were able to apply for and to offer to our students. So it's like a digital preparation, digital skills. The students complete a number of modules. They get a certificate at the end. They can add that to their resume. We were able to get some funding from Google for our office, our career services office. And so they got some additional staff, they got some programming dollars, and they were able to offer this as a resource to all of our students because we're an HSI. And then with Bank of America also approached us, and they had an interest in healthcare professions. And again, understanding the need, the language needs, right, and representation needs in nursing, in healthcare overall. Part of their Progresando initiative, they invited us to apply to be a partner with them. And so we have a number of resources in place for students. We have hardship funds for students that want to take the MCAT or the NCLEX for the medical, right, or the nursing exams, or any GRE, any graduate entrance exam for a graduate program that is related to health professions. We have hardship funds for students to pay for their exams or to pay for study prep material, because we know that standardized exams, right, are often difficult, right? Difficult for all students. And when we look at the numbers, you know, especially difficult for underrepresented students. So we have some of that. We have now a research and writing lab for healthcare professions, because we know that writing is a need, right? Our students need to, in those areas, need to strengthen their writing. Test prep across the board of different courses that will prepare them eventually to take those exams down the road. So that's what our Bank of America, our partnership with Bank of America through the Progresando initiative, those are some of the activities that we were able to put place there. So all of it has just been super helpful, and it's just different areas that we're able to cover through these grants.
Oh, y'all are doing it. I didn't know you had 3 NSFs as well.
Yes.
That is just, yes, y'all are doing it. And like, it just increase all of these initiatives you're talking about, increase the capacity of the campus, right? It's like, you can increase the capacity of your campus and serve all your students while having this Latine focus, right? And this Latine lens. And so, yeah, y'all are crushing it. I love it. Love to hear it. Love to hear the success. And that I know that you are leading a lot of this stuff collaboratively, of course.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So when we talked about this episode, you suggested a theme, Sino yo, Quien, leading the way to servingness. Talk to me about the significance of this statement. I love it. So what is the significance?
Yes, sino yo, quien. So right, translates to, if not me, who. I think what led to that was, as I reflected on our servingness journey, and understanding that none of this work is possible, right, without collaboration, without a group of folks behind you and willing to contribute in some way. None of this is possible. And at the same time, right, something or someone, right, serves as the catalyst in a way, right? And so for me, I guess what I was thinking about with this was that everyone can make a difference, right? When we talk about, right, can one person make a difference? Yeah, one person can make a difference, right? If you have an idea, you want to bring it forward, you want to get some people involved, you want to explore, right, bring people together and explore the possibilities, then you have to start somewhere. So, and why not you? Why not me? So that's what led to that. Sino yo quien, why not me? Why not me be the one to start the conversation, and then hopefully others they get it, they click with it, they get excited, they want to contribute. So everything starts somewhere, and everything can start with one person. So for those who are listening, right, it can be you, right? Si no tú quien, it can be you. You can get the ball rolling, you can get the wheels turning. And then, you know, a few years down the line, then perhaps, you know, you can have your own success stories of what it means to be an HSI, right, in a meaningful context. So I hope that helps those that are listening.
I love it. I love it. You're going to have to write like, you know, your memoir. That's going to be the title.
Oh, okay.
When you write it, we need
okay.
it. We need to know your story. But of course, we're sharing the story here, so we'll share it here. But yeah, that's beautiful, and you're absolutely right. I agree 100%. Right? Like, yeah, like one person can start a movement. Right? That's the butterfly effect. Right? Like, we know that's the case.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you started with was your identity, right? You started solidly with who you are as a Latina, right? You said, hey, let me start here. So I want to finish this episode, right? I was wrapping up with that as well, because I, you know, hear a lot from people, and this is coming up in the book I'm writing right now, that like, when it's white HSI writers of grants, white HSI leaders of grants, right? That like something is missing for people, right? They want it to be Latinas, Latinos,
Uh-huh.
Latines, right, leading this work. So how does your core identity, right, as a Latina, as a
Mhm.
Boricua, come
Yeah.
into this work, right? How is that your lens in this work?
Oh goodness. Whew. Yes, I appreciate this opportunity, right, to end in this way because it's really it's everything, right? Like it's not lost on me, right? That I'm one of the very few Latinas that holds a doctoral degree, that earned a doctoral degree. It's not lost on me. And I know that that comes with a responsibility. And so when I think of myself as a leader, I not only think of myself as a Latina leader that Latina students can look up to. I look at myself as a Latina leader that all students can look up to because all students should understand, right? That leadership comes in many different forms, colors, experiences, genders, etc., what have you. So all students should see, right, leadership that comes from all walks of life. And so I do add an additional layer of pressure on myself, right, to just be the best that I can uh, and showcase excellence because I know that a lot of people depend on that, right? I often think about, I go home to Brooklyn all the time, right? Once or twice a year at least. And when I go home, right, I'm just reminded, right? I'm reminded of where I come from and all of the sacrifice and everything that I had to do to get here and to make a difference for others. So I think about that. I'm reminded of that all the time when I go home. I'm reminded of that when I interact with parents during Spanish orientation, right? And the look of that look of relief and excitement, right, when they see me and they assume that I speak Spanish, and in that and I do, which is a good thing, right? In that regard, I can interact with
Yes, yes.
those parents, right? They assume that I speak Spanish, and they're like, "Ay, Dios mío." Ay, qué bueno, right? They're excited. So that's a huge responsibility that I can provide some comfort and some validation, right? Because for me, it's not telling them where to find the information. It's also a pep talk where I share with them, congratulations, you made it. You know, you made it. Like you're here, you're getting enrolled. We got a few more years ahead of us to graduation, but are you here? So that's a great thing. That's a great thing. So I'm reminded of that. Everything in my life, right, has inspires the work that I do today. And I'm just grateful for everyone who poured into me, right, into my cup and mentored me and did what they could to support me and get me to the next level, whatever that next level was. And so I have a responsibility to do the same, you know, for others. So I'm very proud of who I am and where I come from. I am an asset to this work. I am an asset to my institution. I'm an asset to the country, etc. And I'm here to do the best that I can. So and thank you to those who came before, and I'm excited for the ones that follow after.
Yes. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. I always have to unfortunately say the sidebar of like, I'm not saying white people shouldn't lead this work or can't, but the answer you just gave gives us reasons why it's so beautiful when it comes from the community, right? To do
Yes,
HSI work, to do Latina focused work,
yes.
right? And so, you know, I also argue that all the folks need to be involved, right? Like all the
Oh,
races, all
yes.
the genders, absolutely. But your answer was just like, yes, like there's a reason why this is also important, right? To have people in the community that are helping us, right, lead this work. And then you bring the parents in, it's like, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That the fact that they can connect with you, right? They know
Mhm.
that they're leaving their children in good hands,
Mhm.
right? They're like, okay, I feel better, right? When they leave the campus that day. So
Yes.
beautiful.
Thank you.
So final question, before you get out of the podcast, you got to answer, ¿qué pasa, HSIs?
¿Qué pasa, HSIs? You know, I'd say understand the role of the role and the impact of HSIs, right? Just broadly, what do they mean? What does it mean for the economic development goals of your state? What does it mean for our success as a nation? Like understand that role and the impact that we have, and then clearly articulate it because it'll help you take the work, you know, further.
Yes. Beautiful. And that's what's up. Thank you for being a guest here today on ¿Qué pasa, HSIs?